Alright, so part 2 on the core rulebook. Got all the way up to character creation on the first video. Basically the entire fluff section of the book, which is the first 105 pages. That alone, I think, is worth the $60 to pick the book up, even if you have no intention on ever playing the game. 105 pages of pure, previously uncovered information on every aspect of life across all of Immerin is just great. And I still haven't gotten through all of it because I'm going over it in such detail. You know, I've pulled stuff out of it for character creation on the 6 or 7 characters I've made for myself, and maybe half a dozen for other players that I've helped with. It's interesting to go in and pull information out and apply it to your characters, but I still haven't had time to go through it page for page and read all of the fluff, obviously. And I don't want to be biased and just read the Rulic stuff, although I will probably focus more on that and try to, you know, sort of soak more of it up. But I am going to go over everything. It's a hell of a read, and yeah, so that alone I'd pick the book up. But moving on. Second thing that I want to touch on before we get into the more specific sections, like we did in the first video, is I want to mention the artwork in the book. In perfect standing with the rest of the artwork that's ever been released for Privateer Press, other than the Kazazi's faces, which let's not discuss those poor bastards. The artwork is amazing. I mean, whether or not it's, you know, a picture of a city, or you know, a steam jack working in a mine, or trains, or people standing in city streets, just it's all done beautifully with consistent quality, and any one of them would make an amazing print or wall poster or anything. The whole book is just beautiful to look at. Sort of on the other end of the scale, the layout has a feel of, I mean, it's laid out like any other core rulebook for any other game system that you've ever played, but the goofs that appear in, you know, not so much in books of more practiced companies sort of stand out in this one. So like you'll see a paragraph start at the end of a previous section when it was supposed to start at the beginning of a new section, you know, stuff like that. Like one that comes to mind is the Elven description. The first paragraph of the Elven description in the character creation section starts in the Gobber section, because that's the one on the page before, and sort of carries over to the Elven section. So you can tell it's a little bit of a goof. Nothing that ruins the book, but they sort of pop out. So you can tell they, you know, it's their first book and they're still working on their editing skills for this type of book. But it's really well done. It's very simply laid out. They stuck with some core themes the whole way through. For example, any section that lists, what can I say? Any section that lists, you know, a group of objects. Like, for example, the section that lists abilities, they're in alphabetical order. The section that lists skills, they're in alphabetical order. Character careers, they're in alphabetical order. So it's nice that they, you know, some books, a few D&D books even, don't go with that. It's almost sort of just this randomized order. So it makes it much easier to find what you're looking for when you know how they went about laying it out. So I don't want to go into character creation in too much detail, but that is the next section in the book. I'm going to do a full video on that either later tonight or for tomorrow. Possibly later tonight. So character creation, very simply laid out. It's basically a 4 or 5 step process. You select your race. Each race has a set of pre-selected starting values for their stats. The stats are done a little oddly, or maybe it's just because I've only ever played D&D, D20 based games. But they chose to go with some very interesting words. So instead of going with your standard strength, you have physique. The subclasses, the substats of physique are speed and strength. So okay, that's fine. Instead of dexterity, you've got agility, and the substats of agility are prowess and poise. Prowess is used for mainly your mat, and poise is used for your rat. So that's interesting. And then you've got intellect as opposed to intelligence, so similar there. And the 2 sub-stats of that are arcane, which you would use if you were a gifted, well, a magic user, and perception, which is your standard, let's try to find some stuff, perception. So, depending on the class you pick, there's no dice rolling to generate your stats. It's not randomized, it's not a, you know, roll this and drop that kind of system. It's, here's what you have. There is a little modification that you do to that, but I'll go over that real quick. And like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this. But essentially you select a class, and you've got this layout for your starting stats. You can see the column there, the green column is your starting stats, and everybody starts as a hero level, so those are the max levels. The reason you have the max levels is because one of the last steps of character creation is you get to add 3 stat points, spread however you want, to your starting stats, but not going beyond your current level's max. So you're currently a hero level when you make a character, so for example humans start with a physique of 5, have a hero level max of 7, so you could add 2 of your 3 bonus stats to your physique and then 1 somewhere else, or you could spread them however you like. So that's sort of where it brings in the stat customization. So you go from selecting your race, also to touch on really quickly, because I don't want to spend, I'm sorry I spent too much time here, when you select your race, it also tells you which of the archetypes, or archetypes, however you say that word, you can choose from. There are 4 in the game. Most races, or maybe half the races, can use all of them. For example, gobbers can't be gifted, which you have to be gifted to be a magic user. So gobbers can't be magic users, just flat out. It tells you the heights for your male and female characters of said race, as well as your weights. And all the races have an additional characteristic. For example, humans have exceptionally potential. They automatically get an additional starting character stat point to either physique, agility, or intellect. So one of the 3 core, you know. So there's that. Dwarves, if you're interested, because this is my video again, can be any of the archetypes. They know Rulic and, or sorry, they know Rulic and any one other language. Height and weight as you would expect. Load bearing, which, if I can remember correctly, means they don't get speed reductions from armor. So they can wear armor as heavy as they want, they don't slow down. And then also connections clan. So you have a fluff in-game connection to your dwarven clan, so that's pretty cool. So for races, you've got human, dwarf, gobber, Eosian, Niz, Ogren, and Trollkin, which is interesting that they decided to include a more hordes race in here, but probably because they're so commonly found in Immoren, as opposed to Western Immoren, where you would find like Scorn-type people and whatnot. Yeah. So then you go on to select your archetype. You've got gifted, intellectual, mighty, and skilled. Selecting one of those basically gives you 1 immediate ability from selecting that archetype, and then 1 additional ability also from that archetype specifically, but you get to pick it. So the first one is automatic. If you pick it, you get it. The second one, if you pick that archetype, you get it. The second one is chosen from a list of additional abilities that are part of that archetype. So you get 2 abilities from your archetype. Moving on, you then select 2 careers. Careers are essentially classes in the game from anything else I had ever played. You've got, I think, I could count them up real quick, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 16, looks like about 28. I'm going to rough it. 28 careers, which are essentially your classes. So I'll run through them really quick, so listen up. Alchemist, Arcane Mechanic, Arcanist, Aristocrat, Bounty Hunter, Cutthroat, Duelist, Explorer, Fellcaller, Field Mechanic, Gun Mage, Highwayman, Investigator, Iron Fang, Knight, Mage Hunter, Man-at-Arms, Military Officer, Pirate, Priest, Rifleman, Soldier, Sorcerer, Spy, Stormblade, Thief, Trencher, Warcaster. So those are your careers. You pick 2 of those. All of your careers come with a list of starting equipment, starting abilities, starting military skills, which are basically your skills with weapons, starting occupational skills, which are what you would think of for skills for your standard game. Like in D&D, you have, stealth and swim and jump and all that stuff. Those are what your occupational skills are. And like I said, you also get your starting assets, which is usually money. I'm just looking at the Alchemist page right now. You start off with Alchemist leathers, which are a type of armor that also gain benefits against like cold, acid, fire, elements. A gas mask, Traveler's Alchemist kit, which allow you to brew on the road, and any 5 alchemical grenades, as well as a Grenadier's bandolier. So you're basically, your Gormand Wolf, essentially. So again, amazing artwork for all these pages. A lot of it is new, never before seen in any other section or any other book, War Machine, Hordes, or otherwise. They do have prerequisites for some of them. For example, if you wanted to be one of the most specific ones in the whole book is Iron Fang. You have to be human, you have to be Kidoran, and You can only choose this as a starting career because at latter points in the game you can select additional careers. Yeah, so some of them have huge prerequisites, some of them don't. Most of them don't. And there is one very, very specific one, which again, along with the fact that they included Trollkin, surprises me. One of the classes, you probably heard me read it out, is Fellcaller. One of the careers, I should say, is Fellcaller, specific to Trollkin. So that's interesting. They sort of gave them their own little niche. But good for them. All of the classes are amazingly fun to make. It immediately wraps you into the fluff of the game. For example, I made, one of the first rule-up characters I made was a field mechanic, arcane mechanic. And when you pick arcane mechanic, you have to create your own Mechanica armor worth 750 gold. So you immediately have to understand how creating items works. Not only items, but Mechanica, which is, you know, you need to understand how to make the housing, you need to understand, like literally make. It's almost like you have to learn how this works to be able to play the character. And the game is, it's written very, very fluffy. It leans heavily towards RPG, which is good, towards role-playing, which is good because combat-centric games, D&D 4th edition, one to throw out there, sort of get boring after a while because it just sort of turns into a hack and slash. I swing my sword, your turn. I swing my sword, your turn. I swing my sword. And everything between the fights sort of just grays out and doesn't matter. So this one is great, and one of the great examples of that is if you pick Arcane Mechanic, one of the items that you start with is, if I can find it here, Rune Etching Kit. So, Rune Etching Kit, usually, when you look up items in a role-playing book, in a core rule book, you'd think it gives you a description as to how the item is used for checks, or what bonuses it aids to certain skills, how you would use it sort of in a metagaming sense, how it affects the rules. This is the description for Rune Etching Kit, which is used to etch runes, if you could figure that out. It's worth 150 gold coin. The Arcane Mechanics Rune Etching Kit includes tools for creating arcane mechanica, conductance awls, etcher tubs, rune scribers, conduit grips, glyph irons, and a variety of pristine measuring devices such as precision calipers, arcanometric slide rulers, warding sticks, incredibly accurate aligning devices, and jeweler's tools for handling fine mechanical components. Socket mounting wrenches, arcano-conduction contact primers, and other obscure tools are included as well. That's it. That's the whole write-up. That's all fluff. Every word in that was fluff. None of that explains how it's used in the game, what it affects, what bonuses you get from it. It's just fluff, and it's great fluff. I mean, being able to read Arcano Conduction Contact Primers, and it's almost like you just read it and you go, oh yeah, I have 4 of those in my garage right now. Like, you're supposed to know what that means. It's amazing. It just immediately wraps you into the game world, and it's great. So, running out of time here again because I talk too much and focus on things way too much. But the book flows very well. Almost the entire thing is after the fluff, page 105 on. Almost all of it is designed for players. There is a small section, and that's really all you need, for game mastering or DMing, however you want to think of it. It's essentially 20 pages long. And, you know, just flipping through the player section here, it goes on to magic and steam jacks and how to build your own jacks, because when you start as a field mechanic, you start with a light labor jack, which is fun. And yes, one of the weapons you can attach to it and can afford right off the bat is a drill, so that's cool. But yeah, once you get into the game mastering section, and I'm just trying to get to it real quick before we run out of time here, because I am King Talkie Tiki. Yeah, so you've got Full Metal Fantasy Game Mastering. This section starts at page 327 and runs through page, not very far, 339. So, what is that, 12 pages? That's it. And then right after that you get Appendix A, which is the Bestiary, which includes a fair amount of beasts. Again, great artwork. And there's also the additional, like, 35 creatures they've already released via PDF. So the book is really great. At the back, you've got character sheet templates, which I suggest if you're going to play, go online, go to the forums, and go to the tools section, and get the game player sheets that you can fill out. They're PDF files, and then just print. They're very well done. There's also a couple quick guides on there. But the book is laid out great. You've got a full index in the back to help you find anything that you need. I suggest you pick it up. We're going to start playing it later this week. I'll let you guys know how it goes, but buy the book. It's great.